Hello, everyone. We are on our third and hopefully final class for chapter 29 in Lessons in Tanya, Likutei Amarim, a compilation of sayings and teachings that the Alter Rebbe wrote. It's a beginning of it's the first part of the Tanya in the physical books, or wherever how it's written. And we're reading from Chabad.org. And this is geared towards non-Jews. And what else? So let's try and finish up 29. We're probably going to go over a little bit here. I don't know. I don't remember saying the menu. I think I do actually. Indeed, with this explicitly stated in the Torah in connection with the spies sent by Moshe to scout out the Holy Land. At the outset, they declared, "For he, the enemy, is stronger than we." And interpreting the word mimenu, the sages said, read not than we, but than he, meaning that they had no faith in God's ability to lead them into the Holy Land. But afterward, they reversed themselves and announced, "We will readily go up to conquer the land." Whence did their faith in God's ability to return to them? Our teacher Moshe, peace unto him, had not shown them into the interim any sign or miracle concerning this, which would restore their faith. He had merely told them that God was angry with them and had sworn not to allow them to enter the land. What value did this divine anger and oath have to them if, in any case, they did not believe in God's ability to subdue the 31 kings who reigned in the land at that time, for which a reason they had no desire whatsoever to enter the land? Surely then the explanation is as follows. Israelites themselves are believers, being the descendants of believers. Even while they stated the enemy is stronger than he, their divine soul still believed in God. They professed a lack of faith in his ability only because the Sitra Achra clothed in their body, in the person of their animal soul, had risen against the light of the holiness of the divine soul. So there's a play between the Nefesh Behemoth and the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul. With its characteristic impudent arrogance and haughtiness without sense or reason. So the animal soul has impudent arrogance and haughtiness without sense or reason. Therefore, as soon as God became angry with them and thundered angrily, oh, yeah, right. This is when, so Hashem had to just get in their face, basically, and put them in their place. Therefore, as soon as God became angry with them and thundered angrily, "How long shall I bear with this evil congregation? Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness. I, God, have spoken. I will surely do unto all this evil congregation." Their hearts were humbled and broken within them when they heard these stern words, as it is written, and the people mourned greatly. Consequently, the Sitra Achra toppled from its dominion, from its haughtiness and arrogance. So this is yeah, right, because we were talking about like getting mad at the Sitra Achra and like putting it in its place. But the Israelites themselves, i.e., as far as their divine soul was concerned, had believed in God all along. Therefore, as soon as they were released from the dominion of the Sitra Achra, they proclaimed, "We will readily go up." There was no need of a miracle to convince them of God's ability. All that was necessary was to divest the Sitra Achra of its arrogance, and this was accomplished by God's raging at them. Similarly, with every Yid, when the light of his soul does not penetrate his heart, it is merely due to the arrogance of the Sitra Achra, which will vanish as soon as he rages at it. Every person in whose mind there occurs doubts concerning faith in God can deduce from this episode of the spies that these doubts are nothing but the empty words of the Sitra Achra, which raises itself against his divine soul, but Israelites themselves are believers. Furthermore, the Sitra Achra itself entertains no doubts at all concerning faith. As explained in chapter 22, The klipa, in its spiritual state, i.e., when not clothed in the human body, does not deny God's sovereignty. Yeah, I think we talked about this before. The klipa itself is made for a good purpose. It's when the human subserviate, is that even a word? Subverts itself or subservience, servants itself to the klipa rather than the Shem, then the human becomes even lower than the klipa. So the klipa does not deny God's sovereignty. It has merely been granted permission to confuse man with false and deceitful words in order that he may be more richly rewarded for mastering it. This is the purpose of the klipa. This is so important, everyone. Why did Hashem create the klipa? One reason, at least, it has merely been granted permission to confuse man with false and deceitful words in order that he may be more richly rewarded for mastering it. So that's very important. In this, it is similar to the harlot who attempts to seduce the king's son through falsehood and deceit with the king's approval. We learned about that like 10 chapters ago. Very cool. As is in the parable narrated in the Holy Zohar. The parable. A king hires a harlot to seduce his son so that the prince will reveal his wisdom in resisting her wiles. I don't know, does it make sense? A king hires a harlot to seduce his son. That makes sense. So that the prince will reveal his wisdom in resisting her wiles. The heart, how does I don't see how it reveals his wisdom?
Well, because he knows
Proverbs,
kind of like Joseph resisting Potiphar's wife.
He relies on the wisdom.
Yeah, because he has the wisdom of the Torah within him, and he's able to resist the
like Proverbs. Remember the wisdom, the Torah of your mother, and things like that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Good. The harlot herself, knowing the king's intention, does not want the prince to submit to temptation. So she's just a test. She's a little tease. Similarly, with the Sitra Achra, it is merely fulfilling its God-given task and attempting to lure man away from God, but actually desires that man resist it, thereby earning a greater reward. However, this is true only of the spiritual klipa, which is the source of the animal soul. The animal soul and evil impulse, as clothed within man, on the other hand, are truly evil. And their unequivocal aim is to entice man to do evil. Let's read that again. I need to read that again. So there is the spiritual klipa that Hashem created, which is the source of the animal soul. The animal soul and evil impulse as clothed within man. So once man has control of it, so to speak, I mean, ultimately, I guess you could say that Hashem does, right? But from the human's perspective, so Hashem's probably just laughing the whole time, right? Because he already knows what's going on. He's like, okay, I'm going to give man this free will, or I'm going to give him the perception of free will, and let's see what he does with it. And when you do bad things with it, that's what's evil. On the other hand, so when it's clothed within man, when the animal soul and evil impulse as clothed within man, on the other hand, are truly evil, and their unequivocal aim is to entice man to do evil. In the context of the parable, this may be described as follows: the harlot originally commissioned by the king subcontracts a second harlot, and the second, a third, and so on. As the actual executor of the mission becomes successfully further removed from the king, the original intention is lost. And finally, the prince is approached by a harlot who has her own intentions in mind, not those of the king, as she attempts to seduce the prince. In any event, We see that the doubts one may have concerning faith in God are merely the empty words of the Sitra Achra. The soul within every Jew, however, believes in God with a perfect faith. Okay, we're going to stop that class. We're going to get ready to start a new one.